So moving on to my Dharma message today, as I mentioned, I wanted to try to present a sort of green perspective or more environmentally conscientious perspective. This is something that I think we should try to keep in mind as we enter the holiday season, and particularly in regards to us being consumers, right? And there's I think two reasons why I'm thinking about this issue of being more green or more environmentally conscientious. And one reason, maybe you'd agree with me. Hopefully, you would agree with me that, but it doesn't. It's okay if you don't. But so one reason I'm thinking about this issue was the encouraging announcement recently by President-elect Joe Biden of appointing former Secretary of State John Kerry as a kind of climate czar. I think the actual term is climate envoy, but climate czar. And this, obviously signals a positive change in the national policy of the United States. It's significant because this is a cabinet level position, and therefore it brings the issue of climate change, directly into the White House. Probably many of you remember that John Kerry was one of the key architects of the Paris Climate Accords. Here's a quote from CNN. Quote, John Kerry's appointment previews a shift in the approach from the current president's repeated denial of the scientific reality of the climate crisis and systematic rollback of environmental policies, end quote. So that's one reason why I'm thinking about being more green, particularly during this holiday season. But another reason for my focus on this thinking green is a video that I saw recently. It was produced by NBC, and it was about how the popularity of online shopping, especially during the holiday season, that this online shopping actually has some downsides for all of us, specifically in regards to this issue of climate change. And so the video stated facts like something like 7 pounds of CO2, carbon dioxide, are emitted from planes and delivery trucks just to get an online purchase delivered to our door. 7 pounds. And those of you that know this phrase, that's a huge carbon footprint, for the delivery of packages to our door. And also the video said that every year online deliveries create the same carbon emissions as 11 million cars. And then to make matters worse, only about 50% of packaging gets recycled, which of course adds to our another issue that we have, which is the landfill problem. When the landfills, when the organic materials, degrade in the landfill or decompose in the landfill, they release methane gas, which is another huge contributor to the problem of carbon emissions. So one thing to remember is cardboard should always be recycled. Just keep that in mind. Cardboard should always be recycled. And so for this reason, the video is saying we should try to buy local if possible, which can help not only the local businesses in our neighborhood, but also reduce the carbon emissions that that lead to global warming. And then another interesting thing that I heard on this video was that there's some progressive companies like the outdoor equipment company REI and others like them that are advertising that when you buy from them, they donate some of their profits to green causes, which is really a great way to kind of give back. And so in a sense, what the video is saying is that if we practice these more environmentally conscientious practices, we can help make Black Friday into Green Friday. And I thought that was really a wonderful way of putting it. But what caught my attention also was that one such green cause that's receiving these donations is Greta Thunberg. Greta Thunberg's climate strike movement. So I think most of you have heard this name, Greta Thunberg. Her last name is spelled Thunberg, but I understand it's pronounced as Thunberg. But Greta is the 17-year-old Swedish girl who's become a leading spokesperson for the problem of global warming. You might remember that in 2019 she was Time Magazine's Person of the Year, and I think that was really a wonderful, very significant recognition of her accomplishments, her contributions. And so Greta has earnestly been trying to educate us, or to use a more Buddhist term, Greta has been trying to wake us up to the urgency of the problem of climate change. And her motivation is that, as she says, quote, we should use the power of democracy to make our voices heard and make sure that people in power cannot continue to ignore us, end quote. And so, this idea of educating us to the science behind climate change, I think Greta would approve of us watching a video clip that I wanted to share with you today. So this clip features some of the leading climate scientists and science writers. And this clip is actually from a video called Disruption, which is a powerful film produced by the organization, the environmentally active organization that you might have heard called 350.org. Later, I'm going to paste a link to it in the comments section, and then you can watch the whole film later at the link. So actually, I showed this clip last year in the Hondo, the temple, in conjunction with the 2019 global climate strike, which Greta had been one of the organizers of. And actually, my wife and I participated in Greta's climate strike last summer, and we marched with others around Pershing Square in downtown LA. But let me show you this really great clip called from the film Disruption.
The fight of our time, but none of us should exactly have to be activists about all this. In a rational world, the fact that scientists had said the worst thing on Earth is happening now, and here's what you can do to stop it, that would have been enough to push our systems into action.
Yeah, of all the things that probably get me most upset, it's when people start presenting climate change as if it's something new. The science behind our understanding of man-made climate change is very, very old and very well established. So the task we've taken on is documenting this history to help us understand where we are, how we got here, and how we can change course. Scientists have known for more than 150 years that carbon dioxide was a greenhouse gas.
Fourier came up with this notion that there were gases in our atmosphere that allowed sunlight to pass through like a window, but then when sunlight bounced off the Earth's surface, they trapped the heat in, right? So you had now this establishment of what we now call the greenhouse effect.
In the 1850s, John Tyndall made laboratory measurements of the absorption of heat radiation by carbon dioxide. And he concluded that if you change the CO2 in the atmosphere, it's going to affect the planetary energy balance.
Tyndall was the one who really came along and proved that carbon dioxide was a natural thermostat that helped set our planet's temperature.
In the late 1800s, it was the great Swedish chemist Arrhenius who first did the calculations about what would happen as we, as he put it, evaporated our coal mines into the air. But people didn't pay much attention to that in the 20th century because we were too busy figuring out cool new ways to burn fossil fuel. It was only in the late 1950s that we even bothered to measure to see if it was accumulating in the atmosphere. That instrument, which went up on the side of Mauna Loa in Hawaii, is the most important scientific instrument in the world. Beginning in 1959, it found that there was a steadily accumulating amount of CO2 in the atmosphere, the so-called Keeling Curve.
The Keeling Curve is one of the most important pieces of scientific work of the 20th century that shows us that carbon dioxide has been rising continuously and systematically since the Industrial Revolution.
Keeling didn't just show that there was an increase in carbon dioxide, he also pinpointed the source. And what Keeling showed so incredibly was that roughly 1 out of every 4 CO2 molecules in our atmosphere today were put there by us.
Just a year ago, we passed 400 parts per million of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. Now, the pre-industrial level was about 280 parts per million. So human society in the industrial era has raised the level of CO2 in the atmosphere by about 40%, and many people fear that before we're done, we're going to double it or even triple it.
We're pumping CO2 into the atmosphere at a speed which we have never seen before in modern human history. We are absolutely racing into uncharted territory.
In our lifetime, human beings left behind the Holocene, this 10,000-year period of benign climatic stability that coincides with the rise of human civilization. We have crossed a great threshold, and we stand on the edge of others.
That's a very powerful clip and very well produced in terms of very clearly stating the science behind climate change. But besides, the support from science, I think, for joining the fight against climate change, there's also strong support, from the Buddhist teachings, actually. And so, I think on one hand, we have, we see the Buddhist teaching in the very words, climate change. Climate change. Climate change illustrates the Buddhist core teaching of impermanence. Of course, as the film points out, climate change is not referring to, natural daily or seasonal changes in the weather, but it's really the unnatural and disruptive long-term changes in the global climate. That's where the title disruption comes from. We're disrupting the long-term. We're disrupting the normal process of climate because we're adding carbon dioxide to it, and increasingly due to the carbon dioxide that's released by the burning of fossil fuels, what's happening is that more and more of the sun's heat is being retained in the Earth's atmosphere and oceans, and this results in the gradual warming of the planet. So as we saw in the video, as was implied by the video, but if you watch the whole video later, you'll see a lot more discussion about how this problem of climate change and global warming is, arguably, maybe not arguably, it's the greatest difficulty and challenge that humanity has ever faced. And actually, I think that Greta Thunberg herself, and the global movement that she's kind of helped to give rise to, can actually also be seen as an expression of the truth of impermanence. And the reason why I say that is because, in a sense, this movement, I guess we could term or look at it as kind of a positive aspect of impermanence, in the sense that not only is everything constantly changing, but in this reality, this flow of constant change, all life is interrelated and interdependent. And so therefore the powerful and very unsettling reality of climate change that we are facing as humans is working, to wake us up to our own role in its creation. And most importantly, the potential that we have, this potential to join together with others and change course for the better. I think, because of the reality of climate change, we're having to fundamentally change the way that we see ourselves in relationship to our world, and then hopefully realize, now more than ever, that we need to work together for solutions that will benefit all of us. And so, it's important to view the issue of climate change not just from the political viewpoint or even the scientific viewpoint, but from the viewpoint of this expanded perspective that is really the Buddha's teaching, that we are all part of an interconnected and interdependent reality. None of us actually exists as a separate, independent self. all of our actions affect each other for better or for worse. And also, we all have this opportunity to wake up to the greater reality beyond ourselves, and then resolve each in our own way to work for the benefit of all beings. And speaking of realizing this greater reality that we're all part of, I was very moved also by a video that Greta is also involved in. So this is a video of Greta Thunberg and her supporters. And in this video, one of the things that she says, which is kind of like a call to action, if it were, a call to action on the part of Greta and the movement to work against climate change. She says, we're all in the same boat, which is another way of saying, we're all part of an interdependent, interrelated reality. This particular video was produced for the 2019 climate strike that, as I mentioned, my wife and I did participate in. But, it's just as timely today as it was in 2019, probably more so. And so at the end of the video, you'll hear Greta herself ask us all to get involved in the fight against climate change. So let's watch this short video clip. These are testimonials from young people all over the world.
We are the younger generation. We are the ones who are going to be affected, and therefore we demand justice.
What do we want? Climate justice! When do we want it? Now!
Everyone should mobilize for the 20th and the 20th of September, because this is a global issue which actually affects everyone. We are all in the same boat, so everyone should be concerned about this.
Me movilizo porque somos un movimiento mundial.
I'm striking because if we don't fight for our future now, soon we won't have a future left to fight for.
私は次の世代への平等を求めてマーチに参加します。
Je soutiens aussi la grève des enfants pour que les décideurs du climat puissent appuyer pour que l'avenir soit radieux pour nous tous.
Eu vou participar da greve pelo clima no dia 20 de setembro de 2019 porque eu acredito que é responsabilidade nossa cuidar da nossa casa.
And we stand with the youth who are taking a stance today and raising up their voice to be able to have a real impact.
从去年开始，我们看到全球的年轻人开始展开行动。那我们了解到，气候变迁它会影响到的不是这一个世代，还有下个世代。
Jeg synes, det er vigtigt at være med i de globale klimastrækker i september, fordi det her det kan være den sidste chance, vi har for at råbe politikerne op til at handle på klimakrisen.
Я вийду на Global Climate Strike, тому що відчуваю свою власну відповідальність за те, що відбувається зараз на планеті.
I'm joining the strikes because I believe it's time to resist and to take charge of the future that belongs to us, not to the fossil fuel companies.
我们应该立即展开行动，不管是政府、企业、个人。
We stand with Greta and all those fighting for our future.
We need you to be a part of it because we need every age involved. Young people have been leading here, but now it's the job of the rest of us to back them up.
This shouldn't be the children's responsibility, because now the adults also need to help us. So we are calling for them to strike from their work, because we need everyone. There is nothing we can't do, and I mean, if not you should do it, then who else? And if not we should do it now, then when should we do it?
So I think that's a really very moving video and very powerful expression of, I think, the Buddha's teaching of the interdependence of all life. And I hope that we can all join together and do what we can to fight against climate change. It's a very powerful example in the video of actually, what we say in Buddhism, the essential oneness of life, because because of this challenge of climate change, we're, as you saw in the video, we have to transcend, our ethnic barriers, our language barriers, our, gender barriers, our age barriers, and every other barrier, and see the essential oneness that we have, as Greta said so succinctly. We're all in the same boat. And so, this oneness isn't just referring to a kind of, naive kind of kumbaya kind of, warm and fuzzy kind of feeling, because it also means that we all create and suffer together, the consequences of climate change, because the climate obviously connects us all, whether we're aware of our connectedness or not. And this issue of climate change is something, of course, that truly affects not just human life, but actually all life everywhere. As the Buddha taught, we're all part of something bigger than ourselves, and in every moment we are all sustained by countless causes and conditions that actually make our lives possible. So in conclusion, I wanted to urge you on behalf of Greta and the Buddha to educate yourself on the science of climate change, and then to get involved and do whatever you can to help solve the greatest challenge in human history. As I mentioned in the very beginning, one thing we can do during this holiday season, but actually I said during the holiday season, but actually it's all the time we should be doing this, is to try and be more green in our shopping, in our consuming. Try to buy locally if possible, recycle everything that's recyclable, and certainly avoid buying things that we don't really need, just because they're 70% off, we don't necessarily need it. And then this is the other part of it. Try to share with others both the science of climate change as we understand it in our own way, and the underlying wisdom of the Buddha's teachings. Try to share that with other people. So thank you very much for listening. Namo Buddhaya. Namo Buddhaya. Namo Buddhaya.